Hi art historians! Welcome back. This is a week 4 recap video as well as a congratulations! We made it halfway through this course. So first and foremost, let's just discuss what material was covered during these 4 units for both of those modules for week 4. We started out with the Art of Asia, where we talked about the Song and Ming dynasties from China, and then the Joseon dynasty from Korea. And then we moved right along into some medieval art part 4 with Trecento, Italy, and a little bit of indigenous Americas with our Mississippian culture. So those are the different types of artwork and areas of the world that we were covering. So in this video, I'm going to explain a little bit more about some reminders. We'll talk about some really great discussion posts. I will absolutely clarify all of the missteps that happened with your test and quiz taking this week. My apologies in advance. And then I'll, of course, explain a little bit more about exam 1 as well. So let's start with our discussion. First and foremost, folks, these are not optional. I really need everybody to please complete the discussions. There is no way to have a conversation about art history if we're not completing these assignments, and they're not optional. You need to be doing those. So I really hope to see more of those responses going forward. And a little bit earlier in the week as well, folks, rather than Sunday night, I was grading last night until probably close to like 8 o'clock, and a whole bunch of submissions were coming in after that for the discussion. We need to post earlier in the week for that, so that way we give each other time to comment on each other's posts as well. I will always go in and make comments on everybody's, so always to keep a lookout for that. But regardless, those that did post, I'm very grateful and continue to keep up the awesome work. And everybody else, let's make sure we're turning those in if you don't mind, please. Now, the next thing is let's just highlight some of the really awesome discussions that we did have and some comments from your peers that I thought were just really well thought through and presented very, very nicely and interestingly. So first we have Giovanna, who focused on the human figure-based copper plate, and she mentioned that there was this communication between past and present, and I really like that particular little phrase from your discussion post, Giovanna. There is this conversation that's happening. I mean, it's kind of what I'm doing right now. It's what we do in these discussion posts. And so giving it that acknowledgement, and especially within the emotional context, is just really, really well thought through and a great point to make. So thank you for that. Then we have Jordan, who focused on that Ming Dynasty jar, and we wanted to know a little bit more about the piece, and I couldn't agree more, especially in regards to the process of the art making itself. So if you think about the concept of clay, there's so many different types of clay that you might have interacted with up until this point in your life. I'm sure everybody at one point has used or seen Play-Doh. Maybe you've experimented with model magic. There's always Sculpey. I teach a ceramics class at my high school, so I get to interact with stoneware every day. But porcelain is something entirely on its own. And so to know the background about that material makes it even more of a fruitful conversation because we understand the process that went into making it. And so what you should know about this, Jordan, is that porcelain, working with it, especially on the wheel, apparently it's like butter. So it's very, very soft and malleable clay. And then that beautiful cobalt has been applied on top. So wonderful job there. Madeline decided to focus on the Mississippi Bowl, and it was discussed that there is a lot, or when Madeline was discussing this piece, there was a lot of great visual evidence included. So amazing job with that. Being able to describe artwork as you see it is not necessarily the most easy task, and you did so with such fine detail and vocabulary, and so that was really, really impressive. And then Teresa decided to talk about the Virgin and Child enthroned with prophets. And it seems like there was a kind of a little bit of a conversation here about the rewriting of history. Kind of makes me think about what other pieces we might have looked at where what we're seeing isn't necessarily what happened. And that's a really interesting concept to consider. Kind of gets into the narrative behind the piece as well as a little bit more of the context. So great job there, Teresa. All right, folks, really amazing job with that discussion. And everybody else who didn't get the chance to participate, I'm expecting you to do so going forward. So let's talk a little bit about some of the oopsies from this week. First and foremost, I want to send out a huge apology. Despite the fact that as a Lindenwood professor, I am added into these Canvas shells and then am the instructor for that shell, it is my job to go through and make sure there aren't any bugs. Of course, things slip through the cracks. Unfortunately, this week, that was absolutely the case. So I really want to just put out an apology there for everybody. And for those that reached out with those questions, I really appreciate your attention to detail. Never hesitate to let me know, because I want to make sure that the materials that I have there for you are correct. So some of the things that I wanted to mention. In quiz 7, there was a question about Sinsukju, where the question itself was one of the possible answers, and so that can't be correct at all. So if you did get that particular question incorrect, which honestly was everybody but one person, you did not lose points for that question. It was just a 1 out of 1, almost like it never happened. So just so you know, you did not lose points for that incorrect question. Speaking of which, in quiz 8, there was a bit of a mix-up there. So when this course was first published, there were actually 2 quizzes per each module. Upon talking a little bit further with your other Lindenwood instructors, professors, and advisors, and supervisors, we realized this should only be 1 question. And so we went in and started to edit, took out those 2 quizzes for each module, and turned them into 1. Unfortunately, when that happened, it kind of looks like some of the units might have gotten mixed up. So when you took quiz 8, there were a lot of questions about ink and art, but we're not actually going to get to that until this week right now. So you didn't know those learning materials. So just like with the Sinsukju question, I went in and I gave you credit if you got those questions wrong, and I left them alone if you got them right. And same thing with that essay question, but many of you really did an amazing job about that and on that, and personally, as I've been to Machu Picchu this summer, you can't write enough about it. So I really enjoyed reading those responses, and apologies again for that misinformation. Now, what this also means is that I looked ahead to the next quiz number for module 9, and that module has our medieval art, which is what should have been in this one, replaced with the Incan. So module 9 quiz has been completely updated and fixed just for your future reference, or now I guess present reference, since we're in week 5. So thank you folks so much. I apologize for the quiz confusion. You didn't lose points for any of my errors, as I would never, ever do, just so everybody's on the same page. All right, now let's talk about the exam. I want to make sure that everybody's really being careful with their timing. Even though, you may want to take your time on the multiple choice, those essays are really important, and they're worth about almost half of the exam. So it's definitely important to be careful with your timing and to ensure that you give yourself enough time to really fully answer that question, which leads me to my next point. Make sure you're answering the question. If it says to compare 2 things, we must discuss them fully together as well as individually. Many of you did such an awesome job of talking about these 2 works in that last long answer question worth 30 points as its own individual unit, and I cannot fault you for that. Unfortunately, the question is asking us to compare the 2 through a number of different routes and topics, and a lot of you left that part off, and so you might have lost points for that. So just really make sure that you're looking at the question and answering it fully to ensure that you get full points. Speaking of which, make sure you answer the question. If you don't leave yourself enough time and you don't write down anything, I can't give any points for that. However, if you do at least give yourself enough time to get some information down, there's always the opportunity for partial credit, but I can't give partial credit for nothing. So just keep that in mind. So, a couple of questions I wanted to cover for that exam. First, we have the Great Mosque of Damascus, and a lot of you wanted to try to find the feature that is both Roman and Byzantine. So our answers were, first, the hypostyle hall, which is really more Greek and Egyptian. Then we have the dome, which maybe could be argued for fitting into this answer, but truthfully, is the dome central every single time? I don't know about that, so kind of a wishy-washy answer. And then we get into the mihrab, which is exclusively Islamic, so that can't apply. And so that's really why the answer is the colonnaded courtyard. If we think about some of these Byzantine monasteries and these Roman houses, those were absolutely very consistently utilized, and so that's why that question is correct. It's kind of like the best of the best in that way when you're choosing those answers. As an AP art history teacher, I understand when, there are two answers that seem super right and one's more right than the other. And this is kind of one of those situations when many of you may have chosen the dome, but in fact it was the colonnaded courtyard. So then we want to get into the next question that I noticed, which was the Iznik pottery, the floral and the birds. Of course, we want to think Ming jar for this, right? And so that's why the inspiration behind this was definitely Chinese, and that's where we make the comparison between those two works of art. And last but not least, I wanted to also mention that the Great Serpent Mound question, it's absolutely the summer solstice. It's not the winter solstice. I apologize. That question had the incorrect answer as the correct answer. So I'm going to make sure I go back in and give you credit for that, just in case any of you got that one. Actually, most of you got that one wrong, which really it was right. So good job there, and really good job paying attention closely to those little details. I really appreciate it. So at this point, I do have your writing assignments to still grade. With all of the extra assignments this week with the exam and the writing assignment, it's taking me a little bit longer. So just have a little bit of patience there. My goal is to get those into your grade books hopefully by Wednesday, but absolutely before the end of the week. So just hang tight. Those grades are coming to you. Normally when I make these videos, I like to announce that all grades for the week have been inputted, but I'm just waiting on the writing assignments. So I'm on top of that, but again, just hang tight there. Other than that, folks, please make sure that you're using the self-guided exploration template that I provided earlier in class. It's located in Canvas announcements. If you didn't use the template, I commented on your submission that I need the template. So please make sure you resubmit and check those comments. If your notifications aren't on for Canvas, I would go ahead and put those on just so you can see when I'm responding and giving you any feedback, just to make sure we're getting our assignments turned in and in the proper formats. And last but not least, let's keep up with those note sheets, folks. We need to do one per core work of art, and we also really need to be filling in all of the boxes. So just make sure that you're getting all the information in that you need. It only helps you later on in class to do so. Doing lackluster notes will lead to lackluster references when you go to do any of your other assignments that might require your notes. So just keep that in mind. I hope everybody really enjoyed learning about the material from week 4. We have opened up week 5 and you can continue forward. But last but not least, I want to mention those grade calculation worksheets. I'm really, really grateful for you all for completing this extra assignment this week. I had been getting some questions about grade calculations and progress in class and class format. And so really, I thought this was a great opportunity to ensure that we're all on the same page there. I left very detailed comments on your submission or via email if you submitted it that way. So please go ahead and take a look at that, and I really hope we feel a lot more comfortable with our progress in class, what we have gotten done and what we need to get done going forward. I did decide to do this during week 3 just based on those questions I was getting. I didn't want to get all the way to halfway and then have some people really fear for where their final grade is going to end up because they don't fully comprehend the structure of the course. So I thought this was a good activity to kind of get us all at the same page and really feeling comfortable with our progress so far. So I think that takes care of it, folks. I am congratulating you so much. You've made it halfway through class. We've got 4 more lovely weeks left together, and I can't wait to see all the awesome work that you do. Never hesitate to reach out with questions. You know my email, and I will touch base with you all very, very soon. So until then, goodbye.